I'm seeing video.
Okay, I can see video.
Cam is muted, which is the best way I like it.
Okay.
Oh, you can see me now.
All right.
Hello.
It was a Zoom glitch.
I think what happened is when I went out and came back in, I took the controls out with me. We don't have any attendees coming on yet, but hopefully they will be here shortly.
Well, we have we have Brad Holmes,
We have
Jack O'Leary,
Mm.
Eric Diaz.
Eric. And we have
Bill is
Pineda.
there.
There, Madam Chair, there were 6 or 7 attendees a minute ago,
There were, you're right.
and who are people. who-
Larry's back. Okay, we're just missing Scott.
There's Scott.
There's Scott.
That doesn't look like
Does not look like Scott. Scott has changed a lot since the last time. Larry's got a thumb there.
Oh, I need to move you as co-host.
Scott needed help.
Oh, Scott needed help. Oh. All right.
Is that everybody?
Where is?
We can see you, Scott.
Good, I'm wondering. Again,
Why is he unmuted and everybody else is still muted?
what again?
Okay.
All
You
right,
guys
I
are
think
off
we're
and
set
running.
then.
All right. It being 6:11 on June 17th, 2020, I'm calling this meeting of the Brockton Conservation Commission meeting to order. My name's Stephanie Danielson, and I am the chair of the commission. This meeting is being recorded, and in accordance with the governor's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, general law, chapter 30A, section 20, relating to the 2020 novel coronavirus outbreak emergency, the June 17th, 2020 public meeting of the Brockton Conservation Commission shall be physically closed to the public to avoid group congregation. Real-time public participation and comment can be addressed to the Conservation Commission utilizing the Zoom virtual meeting software for remote access. This application will allow users to view the meeting and send a comment or question to the chair via the Q&A function. Submitted text comments will be read into the record at the appropriate points in the meeting. For those of you joining us by phone who want to ask a question, press *9 to raise your hand. A copy of the recording and transcript will be posted to the city's webpage within 7 days. All votes will be done via roll call to ensure count accuracy. Quorum call, board members, please respond to the affirmative in the affirmative to indicate your attendance at this meeting. Stephanie Danielson, here. Joanne?
Here.
Bonnie is not in attendance this evening. Lucia Cersei.
Here.
Okay, so we have 3 members. Okay, so I'm reading ahead. Am I reading ahead? No, I declare we have a quorum. Sorry, I didn't practice this before the meeting. On tonight's agenda, we have the following. We have 1, a request for a minor change for 2020 Main Street, an enforcement order ratification 204 Court Street, an enforcement order ratification for 42 Clermont Avenue, an enforcement order ratification for 36 Clermont Avenue, a request for amended order of conditions for 0 Briar Cliff Road, a notice of intent for Belgravia Avenue, a notice of intent for 56 Oak Hill Way, a request for amended order of conditions for 130 Elliott Street. And again, this meeting is being recorded. So The first item on the agenda is a request for amended order of conditions for Briar Cliff Road. And the applicant is,
Megan? You're muted, Megan.
she looks like she's thinking.
She was muted.
The applicant is Gary Bertocci. I'm not seeing him here.
Okay, do we need him here for this, Megan? The commission will remember that the applicant came before the commission at its last meeting in February with a change to the plan. And I think it was actually beneficial to the wetland area. I think he was moving it out. It was a reconfiguration. But it was significant enough that we stated we wanted him to come with a request for amended order of conditions. Nothing was changing. So, Megan, do you want to just read through your report?
Yes. So again, this is a formal amended order of conditions request for the same plan that the commission first saw at the February 26th meeting. So this is just being formally requested to have this plan accepted as the plan of record. And as I stated at the February meeting, I do believe it is improvement in terms of impacts to the buffer zone. Otherwise, it does not significantly change the scope of the project. So I am recommending that the commission accept the revised plan as the plan of record and that they amend special condition E3 to the following: that a buffer zone of existing trees and vegetation shall remain along the northern property boundary as shown on the plan of record.
Okay, any questions from the commissioners? I have no questions.
I have no questions. I have no questions.
Okay, do I have a motion to issue an amended order of conditions with the condition just read by Megan?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the conditions read by Megan
And to approve
and to
and issue an order of conditions?
approve and issue an order of commissions.
Okay, do I have a second?
I second.
All in favor? Oh, this is a roll call vote. Joanne?
Yes.
Lucia?
Yes.
Stephanie Danielson, yes, in favor. Motion passes. The next item on the agenda is a notice of intent for Buskill Properties, Plot 2, Belgravia Avenue. Larry is still muted. Megan,
He's
you want to
unmuted.
kind of, there he is.
There are a lot of people that would like that more in my life.
I am not chuckling.
Okay, oh, is that it? Wait a minute. He
So
was-
I am on with Rebecca from my office is also on.
I thought I
Megan.
saw your client earlier, but I guess he's,
Yeah, and I'm sorry, and he was on also, but he may have gotten lost when you,
He is an attendee.
you know what, I need to unmute Beta.
Oh, yeah, Phil's up in the
Okay,
corner
Phil's
there.
unmuted now. Okay.
Okay, Megan, do you want to kind of set the stage? I mean, I think the last time we heard this or talked about it was at the February meeting, and
Yes. So
There's-
since then, I believe Silva Engineering has been communicating with the engineering division of DPW about the issue of expanding the basin and having the basin in the right of way. And so as part of that, I believe the city engineer doesn't have a problem with the basin as is, but he has brought up the condition of moving the point of analysis for the peak runoff down out of the basin down to the stream, and making a condition of the order of conditions be that the applicant work with DPW to dredge the stream to decrease impacts. So I believe Silva Engineering has been working with the city engineer on that, but I don't believe the commission has received any formal details on that dredging to date.
I would say that that's a fair summary. And I think that what we were looking for from the commission was to basically have a condition in there that ties this work to the work on the stream so that it's done in conjunction with the city's departments.
Dredging the stream. So you're asking the commission, and we'll get to Phil because I think we need to understand if we're done with the stormwater review, but you're asking the commission without providing any additional information about what the impacts of dredging the stream would be to approve an order of conditions?
No, what I'm saying, no, I guess, let's go back a step. When we provided our analysis, we showed that pre and post is met at the point of analysis, which is at the down gradient point of the stream.
I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt. There is someone who, there's someone talking in the background.
Not on mine.
I don't know who it is. I'm just saying someone has, it stopped. So maybe that's, okay, maybe we're all set. Go ahead.
Okay. So for our point of analysis, we felt it was at the appropriate location. When Phil can speak for himself, but when he reviewed it, his concern was that we may show that it works at that point, but he was concerned at the exit from the basin that we were not meeting pre and post at that location. And that's what prompted us to have our meetings with the city in order to address that concern. And I don't want to speak for the city. Megan, you probably have more direct information. But basically, the result of that meeting was that the city engineer was fine with the way that we did the analysis and where our point of analysis was, and that he indicated that they would they'll do work along that stream to improve conditions along that stream. And I guess there was some question about whether or not they still had an active order to do that, or they needed to put a new order in place in order to be able to complete that work. But all I was suggesting was that if the commission is fine with this project to go forward with the stipulation, that it be done in conjunction with the city's work on the stream in order to make sure that the outfall from our detention basin has the maximum protection for the neighborhood.
Megan, do you want to add anything to that? I have some.
Yeah, so I can't
Questions.
speak to the engineering division's intentions at this time. I can just clarify that the DPW did previously have an order of conditions for general waterways maintenance. That order did expire in 2018, and it was specified for general maintenance in terms of removing man-made obstacles from the stream, so removing trash, debris, removing fallen limbs and vegetation. It specifically prohibited dredging and removing of sediment. So if that is the permit that DPW is looking to get reapproved as a valid order of conditions, dredging would not be a part of that approval. And so this would be, if dredging is proposed, it would have to be an entirely new application from DPW. And to date, I haven't seen any submission from them, so I can't speak to what they are planning to put in a possible notice of intent for the waterways.
Right. And I wouldn't, to me, they're two separate issues, because that general waterways maintenance order of conditions that was issued was a broad permit that allowed the city to go out on an as-needed basis, as Megan pointed out, to clear obstructions from the stream system, so there wasn't a blockage that would cause upstream flooding. This is being done specifically to aid in your stormwater management.
And our point is that we meet the requirements. Our point of analysis is the proper point of analysis, because, and the reason why our results get skewed to a higher number is because we're taking in a lot greater volume of area to that basin. We could, as we showed in an alternative, we could bypass that and let all that other area go underneath the roadway and find its way down in a different direction. But we do not believe that that's it may be a plan that meets the numbers at the point that Phil would like us to meet it, but I don't think it's the best plan for how to deal with this in order to protect the neighborhood and to make sure that the project meets all criteria.
Well, I'm going to ask Phil to weigh in just a minute, but I'm going to reiterate that in order to approve a plan that calls for dredging, the dredging has to be part of the application. It has to be part of the project, and information has to be provided on what the disturbance would be to the land underwater. Is there any disturbance to bank? What standards would that trigger? What is the extent of the impact or alterations? There would be a lot of questions that would need to be addressed. So
we're not suggesting dredging. We are not.
But the city engineer. So I guess the question, because this is a project that needs an order of conditions from the Conservation Commission. The city engineer has said he would be fine with again, this is the extension of the basin.
He's fine with the analysis the way we have it at the down point, at the down location.
As long as there's a dredging of the stream.
No, he's suggesting that that's the appropriate place to do the analysis, and that in order to allay the concerns that the commission has, that he would be willing to do maintenance along there. He thought under an open order, but obviously it's not an open order.
Okay.
But that was just, it's not about our project. It's about just the concerns that the neighborhood had about how the stream functions.
Okay, Phil, can you weigh in here, please?
Can I put the watershed plan up?
Sure.
Can I share my screen?
Does someone have the capability to allow Phil to share his screen?
I believe he can if he has the share screen icon at the bottom.
Yeah. Do you see it, Phil? You have to hover over it.
Let me know if you can see that.
We can see that you're starting to share. Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so this is a kind of unique situation. The applicant is kind of caught in a bind in two instances. One is that the drainage system on the let's see, was more toward the Winter Street. If you look on this over here on this side, you'll see that the drainage system there is compromised relative to there's the existing system. On the opposite side, on the north side, on the north side of what is that, 41 Harmon Street, there's that channel that is also very compromised relative to capacity to flow. And actually the very first meeting on this that I attended, the abutter here at 41 complained that this existing swale floods frequently. They actually sent us a couple videos and showed us how that works, the flooding. You know, a large portion of all the drainage, including the street drainage and all the developed lots, is being detained in this basin and outletting to the stream. Mr. Silver is correct in that at the down gradient at the end of Herman Street, they do show that the peak rate of runoff is not increased. However, intermediate to that is 41 Harmon Street, and the calculations do show that there's an increase in the peak rate of runoff to this abutter's property. So that has to be considered because you can't adversely impact an abutter as a result of your development project. So there is a possible solution is the increase in the capacity in this channel, but until that happens, this abutter at 41 Harmon Street is in danger of increasing the frequency and severity of flooding as a result of this project. So I wasn't involved in the discussions with the town engineer, but that is our major concern. I feel for the applicant in terms of, you know, there's very little area to go with it, the drainage systems, and he really does need the cooperation of the city on this effort. But we have not seen any kind of plan for the increased capacity in that swale, and therefore we are still of concern that although the project as a total will not increase runoff, there is an increase in peak rate of runoff to 41 Harmon Street.
So there's almost a basic question here. So, I mean, so what I'm hearing is that a drainage system was put in place probably when the original subdivision or housing was constructed, right? The existing development.
So there is no drainage, formal drainage in Belgravia Street right now, Belgravia Ave right now.
So the drainage pipes that you were showing us earlier on if this is a north-south orientation, which I can't see, would be on the western side. Yeah.
So this
when
is
was that drain? It's a swale. Okay.
Right.
So there's swales.
Right. It's the drainage system is on Harmon Street. It's actually right here. But this drainage system also has no outlet. So
the swales convey stormwater to pipes on Harmon Street.
Yeah. But actually it's going to flow down the street because this system it doesn't have the outlet. It's very compromised in the back here. So we don't anticipate this having a sufficient capacity to increase flow at all. So it will flow down the street and off the street into the swale, as noted on this watershed plan.
So the long and short of it is, it sounds like and we've been trying to get to this point on this, I think, is that the necessary infrastructure to support construction of a house or development of this lot such that stormwater runoff would not impact abutters is not in place.
That's not true. That's not true. That's not an accurate statement.
Okay.
What we are saying is that if you look in this southeast corner, we are, as part of what we're proposing here, we're taking in a significant amount of area now that flows down towards Herman Street, but we're now bringing it into Belgravia, and we're now bringing it down and regulating it through the basin out to that stream.
So Larry, just for clarification, when you say you're taking on, does that mean you're proposing to take on more stormwater than
redirecting
currently
a portion of
flows?
it. Yes, we're redirecting a portion, a larger portion that would naturally find its way to that point next to next to
Hi,
number
excuse me,
41.
it's Paul Maliaco. I lost the audio.
Okay. Do we know who Paul Maliaco is?
He's the property owner at the home you're talking about.
Okay. All right. So Larry, again, if you could just respond to my question, I'm going to repeat it. And if you could just respond again.
Yep.
When you say you're taking more flow, are you talking and redirecting it? Are you saying that you're proposing to grade in such a way that you would take more flow than is currently being directed to your site?
That's correct. And if you look in that southeast corner, there is a good segment of the flow that does not find its way into Belgravia Avenue now because there are no controls there. It goes past it and then down towards Herman Street and goes to other areas which are not functioning very well. But by us doing the improvements along Belgravia Avenue, we are picking up a lot more of the flow that's in that southeast corner between Winter Street and Belgravia, in that corner in there. And we're now taking that flow into Belgravia, bringing it across into the detention basin, and then discharging it to the stream. And then it finds its way down towards Herman Street and the stream in a westerly direction. So we've improved it immensely. Now, if the goal is, well, don't send as much to that area, then what that means is we have to now take all that area that's in the southeast corner and just let it go underneath Belgravia and say, hey, look, that's not our concern. Where that goes doesn't much matter to our project because we're not the ones creating all of that. And so that, to me, is not a responsible way of dealing with the drainage. It's a legal way, and it's a way that shows that we would have less going through the detention basin and out to the stream. But I don't believe it's the better way to go, and neither did DPW nor the city engineer. They felt that we should allow for the extra flow to go through our basin, and that they would work on making sure that the hydraulics of the stream are improved by their work. And they would do that in conjunction with Mr. Cooley.
So
Were they going to do the work, or were you going to do the work?
We would be, Mr. Cooley would be responsible for a portion of the work from number 41 down to Herman, but it would be up to DPW as to how that work is performed. They would probably do the work, but there would be a contribution from Mr. Cooley for that work that's done by them.
So Phil, again, I'd like you to weigh in.
So, yes. So two things. One is I disagree. I don't think there's adequate infrastructure in place currently. But also, I don't know, can you still see my screen?
Yep.
You get this is the precondition watershed plan.
Yeah. Or
as Larry pointed out, there's a huge area that just goes by and overland to Harmon Street. And again, this drainage system is non-functioning or functions very little because of,
filled in over the years, I think.
Right. So there's no drainage in Belgravia, and virtually there's no drainage in Harmon Street. This swale is way undersized, as was reported on several occasions. And so see this area right here, this small area?
Yep.
This is the area that currently goes from the project watershed. Now, mind you, there's a more upland watershed that goes to the swale, but this is the area that goes to the swale right behind 41 Harmon.
Yep.
So, and you can see this huge area. So Larry is correct in terms of in the post condition, this whole area is now going to this swale. This is going to be, because this is a detention basin, the peaks will be offset. So this will be getting through first, but this whole area is not now going overland to Harmon Street. It's going through the basin and to the swale directly.
Mm-hmm.
So the increase in flow is from here to here in this swale.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, there's significant capacity issues already there. So
Right.
So and on a private property, I don't know, is there an easement here? It looks like there may be an easement, but I would be concerned for this abutter. You know,
Right.
he's already give testimony and proof that there's flooding on his property. And although I think this is a good idea, I think until there's a resolution with this
The receiving.
this swale,
Yeah.
then I don't think there should be any, construction. So, so I don't, obviously it's a challenging thing. And, if you've got cooperation from the city, obviously that's a different permitting issues, but provided the swale has the capacity, I think it can go forward.
And with all due respect to the city engineer, the fact that from an engineering perspective, that may seem to make sense to him, it's still, and you refer to it as a swale, but that's the stream, correct? Or is it the swale that leads to the stream?
Yeah, I have some pictures of it, but
yeah.
Let me see. It may take me a minute to get to them, but. Yeah, let me shut this down for a second, then I'll see if I can get the pictures. Actually, no, I think I'm frozen.
So while he's looking for that, Stephanie, so I just want to make the point that I was saying is, if we want to reduce the numbers at the basin so that we're now less or pre and post match at the basin, then that means we have to let a lot of that flow that's in that southeast corner just go unregulated down towards Herman, the way it does now. And we're just saying is that, yeah, we can do that, but is it really in anybody's best interest to do it that way? The house at 41 is going to have protection that it didn't have before from a berm that's part of this basin. So where he had a lot of direct runoff that was coming into his property, he now will not see that direct runoff. He does have the issue that occurs like all the other properties on there, on that swale or intermittent stream, ditch, whatever you want to call it, that runs along that the side of his property. That's an issue that's there. We can't correct all of that, but if you want to make those numbers match at the basin, then we got to let a lot of that other flow go unmitigated, which has nothing to do with what we're doing. That's flow that's existing houses adjacent to Winter Street and Belgravia, that we can let it flow underneath the road. But I don't think that's in the best interest, because as Phil says, once it gets down to Herman Street, it doesn't really have a good, efficient way to find its way to the stream at that point.
Phil, you are still there. I see your head.
Yep.
Did you find that, Phil?
So yeah, so this is here there's not very good pictures, but let me see if you can see it. So this is a kind of kind of the swale. I mean, it's not well defined at all. There's also, let me see if I can get another one.
A lot of it's been a neighborhood dumping ground for maybe for decades, I'm sure.
Yeah. So this isn't, I mean, it's kind of overgrown and when we're out there, but there it is. So again, it's very flat. You know, there's very little elevation difference between the foundation to the bottom of the swale.
When were these pictures taken, Phil?
This was taken in June of no, September. Looks like we were out there in September.
Pretty dry conditions at the time?
September of 2019, yes.
Because, I mean, there's clearly, and it looks like it's at least 4 feet wide.
Yeah.
And clearly no vegetation growing within the bed, even though it may be a fairly level, and it might not be a deep stream. But
it doesn't have much bank to hold in water.
Well, I understand that, but it also doesn't have any vegetation, which would indicate that either someone's mowing it, which doesn't look to be the case, or there's water that flows through it that is, and it stays wet enough that vegetation isn't growing. That, I don't know, Megan, what do you think?
Yes, so I was out there at least one of the days the same as Phil. So it was September 24th, 2019 is when I have pictures.
Yep.
And yes, I would agree. You know, it is a narrow, not very deep intermittent stream, but to me it looked like it does have what we would call a stream bed. So the banks are not well defined in some area, but I would define that area that you see as the channel as land underwater.
Yeah.
I agreed with what Stephanie's saying now, that, you know, we don't have test pits, you know, from that stream bed area, but just from being out there, they seem pretty consistent with a mucky stream bed, even where the banks themselves aren't well defined. I think a lot of it would have land underwater for the bed itself.
I don't see any flags, any pin flags or anything defining the limit, the bank. Was it delineated, and was it picked up by field survey?
I believe there were flags originally, but several years ago at this time. So there are little patches of BVW that were flagged, and I think there were bank flags at one point, but when I was out there in September, I think I saw a couple of the old BVW flags, but they would have been, you know, a few years old at that point, so they're probably missing some of them.
They're shown on the plan.
Yes,
And
yeah,
that
they're
was,
shown on
that
the
was
plan,
picked up
but
by survey. That
Yes, it was.
Yeah, okay. Do any of the, I'm sorry, my fellow commissioners have any comments, questions?
Yes, I do. Oh, are you getting?
We're getting some feedback. Yeah, on your
Is it
on
better
your
now?
microphone. Yes.
Okay, good. So this is my neighborhood, and I'm intimately familiar with this stream. Further north, or no, sorry, east, further east, a couple streets up, the stream comes out through a culvert and starts to flow out into the open. And that part of it is usually pretty clogged up and covered in algal growth. And then the stream often dries out and then sometimes picks up again towards the end. But the stream does flow pretty regularly throughout the year. And forever, basically, the houses in this area have had flooding problems. And although I'm not an engineer, I do think that the infrastructure in the area is insufficient for the housing that actually does exist in that area. Having said that, you know, it did go through the planning board and it was approved for the construction of these 4 houses. But I have to say, I do feel like this is one of those situations where you're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. I think the engineering plan is the best that it probably can be, given the circumstances in this area. But my concern really is that how do we make that align with the capacity of that stream that runs nearby? Because one can't really work without the other in terms of not negatively impacting the houses on the end of Herman, or that one house in particular. So, so that's kind of where I'm at the moment. I'm worried about this project. And I just don't know, as a conservation commissioner, where we kind of take it from here to kind of give ourselves confidence and the residents of that area confidence that actually it's not going to make the situation worse for them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Lucia.
I do not have any comments at the moment. I feel like everything I had written down was addressed already.
So we still need some answers. I mean, at this point, if you were to ask to close the meeting and a motion was made to issue an order of conditions, I would strongly be a negative vote.
Well, I think that, yeah, I think that you really have 2 paths. One is that you issue an order of conditions and you put in it, like I said in the beginning, a stipulation that that the work cannot proceed without having improvements to the stream done in conjunction with the city.
But we don't know, but Larry, we don't know what those improvements are. We don't know what the impact of that is. That's not something, I would not vote for an order of conditions that had that stipulation or that condition, because that condition, you're voting to say, oh, well, someone go in and improve the stream or something, without any information. We don't know what it entails. We don't know what the impact would be. We don't know what standards the work would trigger, because there's no quantification of the disturbance of the land underwater or the banks. It may be minimal, but and what are we talking about as far as improving? Are we talking that there were some areas that Phil showed that looked like there is growth that's maybe inhibiting the flow of water, the movement of water. But the second area there appeared to be a clear channel. So what are we talking about when we're talking about dredging or clearing it out? Are we talking about removing a foot, 3 inches? We don't know. We don't know what is being considered or what.
I understand that, Stephanie, but the city has to come back to you to tell you how they're going to do it.
And the city only needs to come back to us if they are going to move forward with a project. If this were their project and they said, we need to go in and we need to alleviate the problem here, and here's what we're proposing, they would need to come to the commission with an order of conditions.
And if they don't do it, then we can't move forward.
They would need to come with
avenue.
an order of conditions, though. And so I can't approve. Again, I'm being very honest. I can't vote for a project where there is this nebulous, something might happen, and we don't know what it is.
Well, then the only other option really is not for us not to send all that water down to that area and let the unregulated flow go underneath Belgravia down towards Herman, and then we do meet the requirements at the corner.
And then I rely on Phil, our stormwater reviewer, to tell us whether that meets the standards or not.
Because I feel as though that we're not being fair to Mr. Cooley for him to be able to go forward and do substantial improvements here. We're leaving it so that he can't go forward after spending countless amounts of money and time just trying to get to the point of doing something responsible in terms of developing this area. But I don't know, you said you were going to ask Phil what he thought.
So based on what I just pulled up Oliver, and it looks like there's about 125 feet of this channel along the property line from, you know, basically where your the outfall of your detention basin is to Harmon Street. So even if it's like 4 feet wide, 5 feet wide, you're talking about anywhere from 500 to 1,000 square feet of impact. And I think if you just go through and just figure out what you need for a swale, I mean, you're gonna solve the problem. So I don't think we should put the whole burden on the commission. But I think it's an opportunity to develop a swale that will more than accommodate the increase in peak rate of runoff in this area, and be done with it.
But Phil, we do not control that property. We don't have control over that property. The city does.
I think, I don't know what to tell you, Larry.
I think you've got to define what the city needs to do and give the commission a level of comfort in terms of the ultimate impacts of the improvement that's required for your project.
Well, I think if I'm going to take it a little different direction. If this project is relying on the city to do something, then it sounds like you need to work with the city to have them advance a project.
Okay.
Stephanie, oh,
But what
Sorry,
is,
Joanne, was that
yeah,
you?
just a quick question. Hypothetically, what would happen if this was a 3-house development instead of that 4th house near the proposed catch basin? Would that make any difference?
it would, number one, it wouldn't make a real difference with the amount of runoff. It would make a huge difference in terms of whether or not it was even fiscally possible for him to even do the project at all.
That side of things I understand, but from a stormwater point of view,
Well,
I'm just wondering if a larger basin would help, if that's something that could be considered, or is it just, it's either this development and the city's cooperation or nothing at all?
He's into it with everything that he possibly could do in this area to satisfy all parties. He has not taken any shortcuts. Joe hasn't taken any shortcuts in terms of his commitments as to what he would do in order to solve the problems here in order to do this. I can't see that it was scaled back, that it's even possible to do it that way. If anything, I would say it's more like right now, it's really marginal as to how much it's worth doing it with how much he's putting into it. But he's willing to do that. And I think that everybody comes out a winner. And I really still don't, I still disagree that the commission can't issue an order of conditions that has a starting point or requirement that other work along that 125, 150 feet of stream bed there is completed. You're not at
I
risk
think it would
because
be,
they have to come before you anyway in order to get approval to do that work.
I frankly would think it would be irresponsible of the Conservation Commission to issue an order of conditions that binds the project to something the city needs to undertake. And we don't, the city's not a party to this application.
Then allow for us to just discard the water that we do not need to control in the direction of Herman Street, and then we do meet all the requirements.
Well, that was my question to Phil, whether that is in fact the case.
We don't have calculations to show what that will look like. I mean, you're assuming that this whole area, you're going to continue to run through the, you know, right now, right now, the, although this shows like a time of concentration line, it kind of sheet flows over all these properties and ultimately gets to Herman Street. So we don't have calculations that show this area going this way. It has to cross the road, and that's why he's picking up in his new roadway design,
Mm-hmm.
which is the logical thing to do.
We actually did provide those calculations that showed the alternative. But then that's when we met with the city, and the city suggested that they prefer is to do it the other way and accept the fact that it met the requirements at the point of analysis. But I mean, we could, I don't know, we could refresh having you see those calculations and take it that direction where we just don't take that flow.
Do the commissioners have any other questions right now?
None from me.
Is it Paul Maliaco? Is he one of the abutters?
Butter, yes. And some other people, I don't know.
Okay. Well, I think we're going to open it up to the public at this point for comments. Mr. Maliaco, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Maliaco?
That's great. Perfect.
Okay.
I'm sitting here also with two of my neighbors.
Could you identify them for the record, please?
Aristide Santea, 29 Harmon Street.
Did you get that, Pam?
It's being recorded.
Okay.
Holly Williams, 41 Herman Street.
Okay, go ahead, Paul.
Hi, good evening. We've been listening with much interest to what's being said, and we've all gone through this now. This property's been proposed for development since I've been here in 2000 when I bought my house, and I mean, I'm glad you're taking our interests seriously, and it's always really been about the water. Where is the water going to go? And clearly, and I want to pick up on what Joanne said, this project, it needs to be scaled back. I mean, Mr. Cooley had an opportunity to build 2 homes, was given approval to build 2 homes in 2009 that addressed everyone's concerns about the water. I mean, it seems the enemy here is the roadway. I mean, as much as it would be nice to have a street there, it looks like it's the source of what everyone's problem is. So I would encourage Mr. Silver, and I think you've done an admirable job of trying to address the concerns, but I would try to convince him to just scale it back. I mean, that's how I feel at this point. So thank you.
I'm going to ask a question. So there are existing problems and issues with stormwater and flooding currently.
Yes.
And this is purely, I understand you are a layperson, you are not an engineer, but you live there. So you're basically saying your sentiment is that even if this land were undeveloped, it would be better than having.
Yes.
And Larry, I'm not giving Mr. Maliaco engineering creds, but then because I understand, and if if there could be improvements to current conditions, and improvements that would improve what's currently occurring for the abutters, that is certainly a goal. That would be something to consider.
Is the improvement, this is a Aristides here, is the improvement guaranteed?
Well, that's why we have a peer reviewer so that they can assess whether what's being proposed as an improvement, in fact, is feasible. And in fact,
Sorry. Yes, we're not engineers and we're not even close to being engineers. But at the same time, this is our home. We all lived here over 10 years. And we did send you guys pictures and videos of what happens, how much flood we do get here. So it's not like we're not showing you proof of just talking. We're actually showing you proof as in videos, as in pictures, as in everything else of even right now, there's no houses in the back over here, but we still get flood no matter what.
right.
So it's like, okay, what else can we say? We can't say anything else. But if Mr. Cooley is saying, yes, there's not going to be no more floods. Okay, let Mr. Cooley guarantee it that if there is a flood, he's the one that's going to pay for everything, for everybody's house. He's going to buy everybody out. I guess that's the only thing I would say, because nobody's going to want to live in a house that's going to keep on flooding over and over.
Yeah.
And
we can't, we can't ask for a guarantee, but again, what we can do is the best job in assessing what the impacts would be, or whether what's being proposed will accomplish the intended goal.
Because like I said, one of the worst things in the world is for you to be at work and for your wife or one of your kids to call you and say, listen, it's raining hard over here and the basement is all flooded. It's one of the worst things in the world. It's like feeling you're losing something that's like, okay, now what do I do? It's one of the worst things. And I called the fire department a few times because I thought it was the sewer backing up, water backing up out of the toilet. And they said, no, your toilet's flushing, it's the water underneath the ground. So it's like, okay, the more you build, no matter what, we all did high school projects or middle school projects. You build something, put it in a bucket, the more rocks you throw in it, and there's water on the bottom, it's gonna rise up even more. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So Larry, what would you like to do?
Well, I guess it depends if, and Phil, as far as your discussion about, you say that you haven't reviewed those calculations for the scenario where the water is allowed to go underneath Belgravia. I think that what we should do then is continue to allow you to look at that scenario.
I would also like you to look at the scenario of what kind of impact, what do you have to do to that swale to increase the capacity? Like to carry the additional flow. So I think that's a much easier task than letting it run over the land, because either way you're gonna be affecting someone. So
Okay, so if we say what the cross section has to be or what improvements have to be done along the stream, how does that get us to the end of the line here as far as permitting?
So from what I understand, you've already talked to the city.
That's correct.
They want to do improvements to this swale, right?
That's correct.
We don't know to what extent that is. The commission can't accept a project that they don't ultimately know all the impacts. But I think really it's got to be a two-step process here, where you have the swale dredged, reconstructed, whatever it is that you develop as a design through the city, and then we can understand that this project won't impact particularly 41 Harmon Street.
But what I'm hearing you say, Stephanie, is that unless we have that, the city's permitted that work, that we may define what it should be.
No, I think what Phil is saying is what I've been saying, that if that's the direction that you and your client want to go, and if it's the direction that makes the most sense, then you need to, and what Phil is saying, you need to quantify that now. That work could be approved as long as, does the city own the property? Pam, does the city need to be a party to the application?
I don't know who owns the property.
It is not a separate parcel. So the stream runs through those parcels. One of the parcels is owned by the city, but it runs through 41 Herman. I believe they probably have an easement, but they'd need to show that on a plan that it is a city easement across the private parcels.
So that's a technicality. It's an important one. It would just mean that you'd need to add those property owners onto the application. They would need to sign that they are part of that they acknowledge that their land would be covered by any order of conditions issued by the commission.
Well, you have your abutters on there now. I mean, are they going to allow for that? They're not going to allow for that if they see that that's a way for it not to go forward.
What I'm hearing is people want a water problem solved. And if that would solve the problem, they might well say yes.
But if you listen to what they said their problem is more groundwater than it is surface water. And I can't solve a groundwater problem because the groundwater problem exists because they built those houses too low.
Doesn't surface water become groundwater? I'm sorry.
Not the water that you're dealing with would not be a direct result of the surface water.
If during a rainstorm,
you're sending all the water from your project to us.
Paul, you need to be recognized by the chair.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
We're just all frustrated at this point because a project of this size is just too much for this area.
Did we lose Larry?
No, he just moved over.
Oh, okay. That's so disconcerting.
Oh, I think somebody else popped on, so it just.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
No. That's okay. That's okay. I think what I'm hearing from the abutters is that if there were a solution, and again, if it's raining, what we heard is that the basements flood when it's raining. So that water, if it's coming over their property, it's contributing to the problem. It may not solve it completely, but again, that's something that we don't know yet because we don't know what the plans are for the swale.
Is just for clarification, are we saying that the water is from the flooding that you have at the house is from surface flow or from groundwater flow?
Both.
It's both.
It's
Yes.
both.
Yes, both of them.
Yes, both.
Okay, I mean, I can deal with surface flow that finds its way adjacent to the house, but I cannot solve a problem of groundwater being high in relationship to their basement floor. Because that's something that's independent of what we're proposing right here.
Well, we live at 41 Herman Street. We're the resident. We're the ones that live at 41 Herman Street, Charlene and Grenville Rice. And we're seeing right now that that water has been a menace from the time we moved here since '03. And I would like for you to come home and find your basement full of water and see how you will feel
Yes.
as you're trying to say that you want to
Build more.
build more and force more water in our houses. And it sounds so unreasonable, you know? I like
Okay.
on the other.
At this point, I mean, I think we've heard from everyone. And again, Larry, the decision is between you and your client, how you
Another,
want to move forward.
sorry.
I'm sorry, Miss Danielson.
Yes.
Can one other abutter, Charlene Williams from 41, would like an opportunity to speak?
Sure, and I'll let you speak, but I will remind you that if you're going to repeat what we've already heard, just please let us know that, you know, that you agree, you've experienced the same thing. Otherwise, I would rather hear new information at this point.
This is Charlene for 41 Herman. My concern is the brook. Whose responsibility to clean that brook? Because I have called the city many times because things come down from wherever it's coming and it logs there, the water overflows onto the property too, and they never come out to clean it.
So Charlene,
Yes.
that is not really, I mean, that contributes to some of the problems, but that's not really the issue or purview of the Conservation Commission. I will say from what I've heard tonight, it sounds like the property owners actually own the stream, that it's located on their properties. I don't know where the property lines are. So if there is material that's coming down that's obstructing the flow of water and it's on your portion of the stream, then you certainly should be going out and probably cleaning it. Again, because it is a resource area, wetland resource area, you can't go out there, you can't dig and make it deeper, trench it, or necessarily clear cut vegetation. If you want to do something, you probably should contact Megan first. But and I'll let either Pam or Megan speak if I'm speaking out of turn here.
Yeah, I can confirm that it looks like, you know, the stream runs through the private parcels.
Yes.
So again, the city may have an easement that allows DPW to also maintain the stream, but they don't own the land that the stream runs through. It's on private parcels, except for the one vacant parcel near Jordan that is owned by the city. But the stream that runs through 41 Herman is on the parcel of 41 Herman.
Okay, so again, at this point, I'm shutting down. We understand and certainly have heard from the abutters with their concerns. And again, Mr. Silver, at this point, are you asking for a continuation?
I'm going to ask my client if he would like to continue at this point.
Yes.
Joe? Okay, so we're asking for a continuation for us to be able to discuss those items that that Phil touched upon tonight.
You did
Pam,
the
what
July
meeting?
meeting?
I'm sorry?
There'd be one meeting in July, Megan, do you have that date by any chance?
Megan, you're muted.
Okay, so the next two upcoming meetings are July 15th and August 19th.
If we say July 15th, is that pushing it to get to you, Phil, get responses back, or? Phil's muted, I think, right now.
It may be. I'm on vacation July 2nd through the 10th. So that would make it, you know, a challenge to get a review of anything significant on the 15th. But
Joe, are you okay with it going to August 19th?
Yeah, that's fine.
So we ask for a request for a continuation to your August 19th meeting.
Do I have a motion to continue to the August 19th meeting?
I make a motion to continue to August 19th.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Stephanie, aye.
Joanne, aye.
Lucia, aye.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is 56 Oak Hill Way, Building Addition. And Pam, who do we have?
He's unmuted.
Thank you. I'm Jack O'Leary, the Vertex Companies. I'm here to represent the project. Thank you for seeing us again. Megan, did you want me to give a quick intro or did you want to handle that?
I think so. I've shared the information we have since I've been out there. So I think the commission should be aware of what's been done up until now. So if you want to share the assessment you shared with me this afternoon of going forward.
Okay, I think I should probably talk about the plan revisions too. It's been a while since we submitted them, and I'm pretty sure we haven't discussed them with the commission too.
Right, yes.
Yeah, I'm almost forgot what they were until this meeting. It's so long, but we did respond to the commission's comments and your consultant's comments on the plans, and the main changes are there was some concern about the proximity of the building to the wetland. It was originally a square. If you don't mind, I can share my screen to illustrate that.
I'm sorry?
Could I share my?
Oh, yes, please do. Please do. Yes.
Yep. Let's see, which one do I have here?
Oh, what did I do?
Right window up top here.
Nope, down at the bottom. If you mouse over, you should see a green share screen button.
Okay, I looks like I accidentally closed the plan. I got to open that back up. Bear with me one moment. Okay, Madam Chair, thank you. Okay, on the original submittal, we had a building addition on the right side of the building that was a rectangle whose corner came rather close to the wetland line in the back corner. And Megan's comments were that that's a little close considering it's within the 25-foot buffer. And
Jack, can you zoom in a little bit?
Sure. Missing that big screen in the conference room.
Yeah.
We were a little close to the wetland at this back corner on the original submittal. So I spoke to the contractor who's doing the work, and he indicated that we could vary from that rectangle. So what we did is we put in this L shape, which took the building back entirely within the existing paved area. So no need for any new disturbance past the existing curving. So what was already permitted, already a permitted alteration of the buffer zone is all that would remain there.
Yeah.
And we are going to be taking this paved area, removing the paving, and put in a stone surface, something that will be less impervious. That brings the front of the building up a little closer here. The other major change is that Phil had commented on the stormwater system and the fact that the original stormwater system had the roof drainage routed through the catch basin and the existing water quality inlet here, which would have potentially resuspended sediment. Good point. So what we did was we redesigned that stormwater setup quite a bit. So
okay, I'm really sorry to do this,
Sure.
but I need to plug in my laptop or I'll be out of the meeting. So if you could hold on just one moment.
I'd be pleased to.
Okay, I apologize. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. That happens. I checked my plug while you were doing that, make sure I wasn't going to lose it myself.
All right.
Okay, so as far as the stormwater goes, Phil had pointed out the connection of the roof drain to the existing drain system that might be problematic, and also that there were other roof drains that weren't addressed. So what we've done is we're going to be able to take the existing roof drains, collect them all within the building, and then route them through a separate roof drain discharge, a new discharge into the stormwater basin with a new flared end section and a new erosion control pad that will completely separate the roof runoff from the surface runoff that's collected by the water quality.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe that addresses the stormwater part, though we can let Phil weigh in on that. And there were some other minor plan adjustments that flow from these changes. For example, changes to the grading, location of the erosion control, things like that. Your erosion control now will be located right in front of the existing berm along the parking lot. So that will work out well. Now, you had wanted us to conduct some maintenance on the stormwater system prior to this hearing. And we did ask the contractor to take care of that. And as Megan has pointed out to me, they may have been a little overzealous in doing so. They did do a good job of clearing off all the woody vegetation that was on the berm of the basin. But they also decided to pick, there was a lot of debris in the woods around this site in general, and in particular right along this 25-foot buffer on the other side of the paving. And they took a lot of that out, and in doing so, they took out a lot of the existing vegetation. I'm sure part of it was because some of the debris was caught up in it. There were vines and trees that grew right through some of the debris, but it was a little bit much. So Megan and I have been having some correspondence on how to address that. And the main thing that comes out of this is that we now need to produce a planting plan to restore that buffer.
Mm-hmm.
Also something for the basin itself, because right now it's left not bare. There's a lot of wood chips, but there's a lot of some invasive species coming in.
Yep.
Now I did take a look at the basin itself as far as what it needs for maintenance. And I certainly would defer to the commission and their agent's discretion, but it looks to me like it actually is working pretty much as intended. It was intended to be a wet basin, and it doesn't have that much silt in it. There's a little bit at this discharge here and a little bit over in this corner for some reason, but the existing riprap that is there's a little riprap basin that is intended to keep the outlet structure from clogging. That's actually working pretty well and has very little muck at all on it. So my thinking is we leave it alone. We've got a good growth of vegetation within the basin. Might be best to leave all this alone. We certainly do need to do some maintenance on the catch basin and the inlets. I'm proposing that we do that as part of the construction process. When we're done with the ground disturbance, we do it all at once.
Mm-hmm.
So my suggestion is we make that planting plan and this further maintenance part of the order of conditions. And you may want to make the planting plan a condition prior to construction start. So
Yep.
that's my spiel on it. I'd be happy to try and answer questions and address any of your concerns.
Megan, do you have anything to add before I ask Phil the comment?
Not at this time. I mean, we sort of just got caught up on the current state of the buffer zone. So Jack and I have started having correspondence about the planting plan, and I agree with what he said so far, but you know, we need to see that in an actual plan form that we could incorporate into an order of conditions. So the things that I've mentioned include dealing with the Japanese knotweed, which is probably the only vegetation coming up out of the chipped area at this point. And so we've recommended there be a treatment plan to handle that before it spreads, and then a planting plan that can be referenced in the order of conditions. And I would agree that it should be conditioned in a way that the planting plan takes precedence.
Right, right. Okay, Phil?
So, so I think there was only one outstanding issue on my list, dated my report dated March 13th. I had not seen this plan that was presented this evening in terms of the roof drain, but the concept looks like it would address my issue. I just need to see what kind of engineering, make sure it works. So,
Okay.
and then also I think there was a reference that this was meant to be a wet basin. I didn't see anything from what we were given that this was meant to be a wet basin, but it makes sense based on the groundwater elevations and also the adjacent wetland. So.
Okay, yep. All right. Joanne? Joanne, are you still with us?
Oh, sorry, no questions. I was muted.
That's okay. Lucia?
I have no questions.
All right. So it sounds like we need to see the planting plan, and Phil needs an opportunity just to check and look at the roof drainage to make sure it's properly engineered. So would you like to continue to the July meeting? Jack?
Well, I'd be agreeable to that, but if there was any, if there was any way to close this out now and work on this prior to the order of conditions being issued, that would be appreciated.
Generally, we don't do that. We like to see everything before we close.
Okay, fair enough.
And but I think based on what we've heard tonight and seen, and if you work with Megan on the plan, and it sounds, you know, Phil's satisfied, but if, you know, in the meantime, resolve any issues there, it sounds like you can probably close on that date.
Okay, I appreciate it. I'm sorry, my internet connection's been cutting out, so I might have missed something. We're talking about continuing to the July date.
Yes.
Looking to close on that date, provided all these items have been addressed.
Correct. And what is that, the 15th, Pam? Did you say July
Yes.
15th? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Well,
All
thank
right.
you.
Thank you. Have a good evening. And
You too, thank you. That was
The
quick.
next- the next item on the agenda is a request for amended order of conditions for 130 Elliott Street. Do we have anyone here for that?
Yes. So I'm going to make Brad
Oh,
a
Eric.
panelist.
Okay. I don't see Brad. Oh, there he
Brad
is.
was there.
He's hiding.
Yeah, I'm getting there. All right, hi, guys.
Hi. Are you, you look like you froze for a minute.
Did. So thank you for hearing us. We're here for that, the amended order of condition, request for the amended order of conditions on 130 Elliott Street. If the commission remembers, we presented our findings of the area to the commission, I think it was January or so.
Yeah. Oh, Brad, do you mind? I'm going to interrupt you just for
Sure,
one
for sure.
moment. Megan, do we need Phil for anything else this evening?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay, so Phil, you're welcome to stay on, but
Yeah, it's so much fun. So
yeah, okay.
yeah, have a good night.
All right, thank
Good
you.
night.
Sorry, Brad.
Sure. So we've requested an amended order of conditions to modify the restoration area at 130 Elliott Street. The commission remembers we presented our findings of the area, that it wasn't wetland prior to alterations, and historically it was probably wetlands a long time ago, but not prior to the regulations. And we went through that, and I won't bore you anymore on that unless you're looking for a recap of that. But what we've done is, based on our findings, we've modified the restoration area that was included in the order of conditions so that it's a buffer zone and riverfront restoration area. And that has been submitted on the revised plan. I don't, I'm sure you guys can pull it up. I don't have it here.
Megan, do you want to pull it up?
I believe, yes, I think I can pull it up while we're going through this.
Thanks, Megan. At the beginning of, even before we started this process last fall, I coordinated with Joe Savino, the applicant, and we were starting the work. The plant stock was delivered to the site. We were getting ready to do the work. And that's when we put it on hold, when we found that conditions weren't what we thought they were, and we did the research. So since we started that process in the fall, all the plants were on site. They were being basically protected through the winter, but now we're into the growing season. We know we wouldn't have this delay if we weren't in the COVID situation, but we had to get the plants in the ground so that we didn't lose the plant stock that we had. So the restoration area has actually been planted, and I provided Megan with some photographs of that. So that's the layout of the revised restoration area that we're proposing. So that would be with the blue part is in the riverfront, the green part is buffer zone. Using the same plants numbers that we had originally proposed in the order of conditions used in that area. And as I said, so that we didn't lose the plants, the restoration area was loamed, seeded with the appropriate conservation wildlife seed mixes, and then the area was planted. That has been updated to the commission with photos. So we're looking for the commission's support to proceed with this revised restoration area. And I know that Megan did get a chance to provide a report to us previously, which we received in an agreement with.
Megan, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so I can just summarize my recommendations. So I think there is sufficient evidence provided to say that the alterations to the site from 2001 afterwards were done to buffer zone. So the fill underneath was probably historical based on the imagery from 1965. So based on that, I do support converting the 8,400 square foot BVW and floodplain restoration to buffer zone restoration. So the original amendment plan we were submitted was showing basically, if you can see my cursor, this upper left portion that was part of the BVW restoration was proposed to not be included in the buffer zone, but I'm recommending that the entire 8,400 square feet be buffer zone restoration in order to remedy the unpermitted buffer zone disturbance that occurred between 2001 and 2005, which included new clearing, new pavement, and other impervious surface within that buffer zone. And so including the entire 8,400 would help offset that prior unpermitted alteration. And so based on that, I can recommend amending the order of condition in the following ways. So the order of conditions would be updated to change the inland resource area impacts on WPA Form 5 to take out the proposed impacts. Special conditions B4, B5, and E1 can be removed. I would recommend that E1, which is the monitoring, be replaced with at least one other follow-up monitoring report. Now that the plants are in and it's already been loamed, I recommend that the commission condition that there's at least one more follow-up report at some point. And then finally, throughout the order of conditions, I recommend changing all mentions of a wetland restoration area to an 8,400 square foot buffer zone and riverfront restoration area. And then finally, unrelated to the amendment request, but just to keep everyone up to date, the order of conditions does have a condition that prior to commission approval for a building permit be provided, the commission needs to receive a complete plan set with a detail sheet and also an approval letter from the city engineer. So that was conditioned because to date, this project did not go through peer review for stormwater. So instead, it was conditioned that the city engineer would provide an approval letter, but to date, the commission has not received that. So I just want to make sure everyone is aware that that condition, I'm recommending it remain with this amendment in the order of conditions.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Joanne, any questions, comments?
Nope.
Lucia?
No questions right now.
Okay. So we don't need anything else at this point? I mean, you've laid out a number of conditions. I can't get back to the file that would allow me to open that, but for some reason. Megan, that question was for you. Is there?
It was in my report is where I outline
Right.
all the line
No.
by line changes.
Right. But my question was, is there anything else we need before we would close the hearing?
Oh, no. Again, there is still the outstanding condition that we received the letter from
Yep.
the city engineer, but as it's written now, it needs to be provided before issuance of a building permit. And to date, the applicant has not applied for a building permit. So at this time, I don't see the need to change that verbiage unless the commission feels otherwise.
Okay. And does the building department check in with you when they get a building permit? Is there a mechanism that you would know that and be able to weigh in and say they need to provide this?
Yes, so the building permit process is now done electronically. And so the building superintendent requests approvals from relevant departments. And so a request comes to the planning department and conservation. And so when I say prior to commission approval, that means my sign off on behalf of the commission to the building permit.
Yep. Okay, just as long as
We
there's.
also notify them if there's a specific application that they should be looking out for.
So you flag it.
Some things do slip through the cracks, unfortunately. So we always send another email just to let them know that if this comes, this is an issue.
Right. Okay. All right. So Brad, I'm assuming you'd like to close the hearing?
We would like to.
Any members?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Do we have
Yes,
any
we
members?
would like to close the hearing. The only one ask that I'll ask the commission to consider is in that upper left corner where we reduced the amount of restoration proposal in there. Those numbers were based on, an 8,400 square foot area in total that we found were in error. This proposal, as you can see, is pretty significant throughout the site. And, we're just asking if we can get that upper left corner not to be planted. It would be some sort of a green space that would go along with the upcoming development, but it wouldn't be part of the restoration area. It's something we're asking for the commission to consider, because you can see that he's actually provided quite a bit.
I mean, I can just add, I mean, if needed, I can provide the aerial imagery showing the impacts that have occurred between 2001 and 2005. There has been an increase in impervious area in that period, and then subsequently in the back where recycled asphalt or equivalent was also added. Looking at it, approximating it, I think it's about equivalent of the area being shown up here. So this area that's proposing being taken out of the restoration area, if you look at the aerial imagery, it's in the similar area where the impervious recycled asphalt has expanded over the years. So again, I'm recommending keeping the entire restoration area to remedy the increase in impervious area that's happened in the buffer zone since 2001. And we can quantify that if the commission would like, but based on my estimation, I thought it was a reasonable equivalence.
Well, how about if we meet in the middle, in the sense that because we've already planted all the plantings that we had in the tables there, spaced them out evenly throughout the area, which actually looked really nice. We leave that as a restoration area, being a wildflower kind of pollinator habitat area, which is going to be a little easier to create than buying additional plantings to fill in that additional space. And it would still be left as a restoration area, but it would be a wildflower area.
I'm agreeable to that, but I would want to see that on a plan. Other commissioners? Joanne, Lucia?
No, I agree with you on that.
I have it available. I could provide to you right now. I don't know. It's just basically taking that area that's in white and just shading it as a wildflower area. That's all.
On a plan. Pam, are we meeting next Wednesday?
Yes.
Plenty of time to get Brad on the agenda and for Brad to get us a plan, an updated plan?
Agenda is being posted tomorrow, I assume, Megan?
I believe Joe Johnson already posted it
He
today.
posted
I
it?
sent it to him, yeah, this afternoon.
We
can-
have enough time to do an amended, right?
Correct.
I mean,
Probably, yes.
if I can
And you-
ask, all I'm going to do is just show that area that's in white, and it's just going to be a wildflower garden. I don't want to.
We don't
So
have a
that-
full set of plans anyway.
Oh, okay. So we
We
need
have
a
a-
full,
The full set of plans go with the order of conditions, that's already in house. This plan has been updated and stamped previously. All I'm saying is it seems, I don't want to waste the commission's time to have it on an agenda, and all we're going to do is look at this little white square and say, okay, that's agreeable as if it's not agreeable as a wildflower area, that's fine, but I don't want to waste your time just to say, hey, this little white square is now wildflowers.
it needs to be on a plan and the commission needs to have it before we close the hearing. That's what I'm hearing agreement on. And again, you heard with the previous applicant that it is not the commission's policy to close before the plans are complete.
Then we'll leave it as is, then close the meeting as the full restoration area. We'll plant it out. That's fine. Following Megan's recommendations, we'd like to go forward and we'll buy additional plantings and get them in. We'd like to close the meeting.
Okay, is everybody agreeable?
Yes.
Do I have a motion to close the hearing?
Motion to close the hearing?
Second,
Second.
all in favor, Stephanie, I.
Joanne, yes?
Lucia, I.
Okay, and do I have a motion to issue an amended order of conditions with all the conditions outlined by Megan in her report?
I
Go ahead, Lucia.
I make a motion to amend and accept the conditions outlined by Megan.
Second?
Oh, all in favor, Stephanie, I.
Joanne, yes?
Lucia, I.
You did that so fast, Joanne. I was like, oh, she's asking for a second. All right. Thank you, Brad.
Thank you very much.
Have a good night.
You too.
All right, we have some enforcement ratifications.
We also have the minor change, I think.
Oh, wait a
is-
minute.
We got Eric.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Where was that one?
What happened to Scott?
I was first, just so we're all remember.
Wait a minute. What was Scott Farrier on for?
He was on with Brad for the last one.
Yeah, he
Oh,
did
that's
the
right.
plan
That's right. That's right.
themselves.
Yep. All right, wait a minute. So
But he
that was
left.
130. What is
20. Aren't you 20?
Me, I'm
2020?
20.
It's way at the top. We should have done that for, sorry, it was not, this agenda was done a little differently than I'm used to.
Not a problem. It was entertaining at least.
You're being very, very gracious. Okay, Megan, you want to give a little bit of background on this one?
Yes, so this is in reference to the buffer zone restoration at 2020 Main. So there was a previous order of conditions that required this buffer zone restoration. It was not completed before the order expired. So when the applicant came back for a new order for a building addition, the commission at the time just carried over that same restoration plan. And so at the time, that plan called for a buffer zone restoration area with some, basically a trench excavation with plantings installed in the trench. But since then, the wetland scientist and the applicant thought that the excavation of the trench was not necessary for the goals of the buffer zone area. And so I had asked Eric to provide just a refresher of the stormwater calculations to make sure the trench was not included as part of the stormwater management system. And so I can let Eric confirm what he put in that report.
Yes, we did take a look at this. As Megan said, it was part of the stormwater management design was actually originally part of an order of conditions dated back to 2012, which had expired. The most recent order of conditions that we applied for was simply to convert an area of pavement to an area of rooftop. So there was no increase in impervious area. It was just a redevelopment project. So what we had to do was take a look, kind of go back and almost forensically dissect what that 2012 stormwater design was. And when we did that, what we found, and I'll just summarize, if we were to take away the trench grading within the buffer zone restoration area, we found that there was no increase in design flows to the BVW. We found that the system has the ability to recharge through the structural components in excess of what is required under the stormwater management standards from the state. We also found that the structural system that's there now exceeds the water quality requirements that were there from the state. So really the omission of the grading in that area has a nil effect on the stormwater design. The other thing just to note, on the site now, prior to the buffer zone restoration area, which is at the end of the edge of pavement, there's actually a curb on the site. So the water wouldn't really be able to flow into the buffer zone restoration anyway. And then just beyond the buffer zone restoration is within 10, 15 feet at the most is a natural low point of the site. So anything that does make it there is just going to collect in that low point. So we don't believe that the grading is critical to the stormwater design in any way.
Okay. So anything else to add, Megan?
So at this point, the last time I was out there, I had seen that the woody plantings had gone in. At the time, we weren't seeing any growth of the ground cover layer. So at this point, if the commission chooses to accept that the grading is not a major change, I would just recommend that the commission still expect a follow-up monitoring report just to confirm the status of the woody plantings and to confirm that the herbaceous ground cover has been completed.
Okay.
We are remembering that too.
Any comments from Joanna, Lucia?
None for me.
Did we lose Lucia?
I don't see her on here.
I don't either.
Uh-oh.
Oh, that means we just have 2 members. Did we lose quorum?
Let's see.
I believe, because you only have 4 members.
2 is
Quorum is
quorum.
3, yes.
Oh.
Oh.
I'm not seeing an email from her yet.
Although I see Joanne twice. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
Yeah, I'm good though. Just ignore that.
Okay, I'm going to send her a text. Here I am with, okay, let's see. Let's see if we get her back. Eric, oh God, Eric, sorry.
It's not a problem.
Mm.
We'll work it out.
It's only taken us this long to get to this meeting.
Well, if I have to come back next week, if we don't get her back, I am going to ask if I can go first. Just a heads up.
No, you will, and I'll have it.
Fair
We
enough.
need to, we definitely need to, this is a very neat looking agenda, but my brain doesn't work this way. So I like the numbered items, and then like the enforcements can go at the bottom. I'm not getting a message back.
I wonder if she realizes she's off.
Well, that's why I sent her a text.
I wonder if her phone died, maybe? Was she on her phone?
Was she on her phone? She might have been. If she did, she had it set up really well.
Yeah. Yeah, if we can't see her, she can't see us. So she's
Yeah.
definitely not here.
Yeah. Sorry, Eric. Next week, first, number one.
Number one. All right, that sounds good. So next week, same time, same station?
Do we even need Eric? Well, Lucia didn't hear you. No, because we can go.
We can, I don't believe the
Megan
applicant
can
needs to
just-
be, you know.
Yeah, Megan can just review everything that we just did and said.
And I did submit a stormwater report in letter form back on February 13th. So if that's helpful to distribute that amongst the commission
Does
members.
it have a summary that basically says what you just said?
Yes, it does.
That would be, yes, we can do that then.
Yes, it's shared in the Google Drive.
Yeah, so why don't we do that? Then we won't even have to put you first. We can take it up at the end and you won't have to be at the meeting.
Okay, great. Well, I appreciate that. And I assume, Megan, you'll let me know afterward if it's accepted as a field change. Is that correct?
Yes, yes. And I'll confirm again that the commission would like a follow-up report for the plantings
And I think
as they are.
I think that makes sense. We don't take exception to that. So we're good with that.
All right, thank you.
All right. Thank you all for your time. I appreciate it.
Sorry, Eric.
No problem. Have a good night.
Night.
All right, now who's Darnell?
Darnell is an enforcement.
Okay.
I think what you have, because there's 3 attendees, is somebody, Michael and Darnell.
Michael.
That's me.
Oh, who's Mike?
All right, so
Maybe Mike Curtin, the guy who built it.
all right, Megan, do you want to
Donnell's got his hand up, so wait a minute.
Okay, well, let's have Megan start.
Okay, well, since the owner is here for 42 Clermont, this is an enforcement order for 42 Clermont Ave. So this was in response to an email and a call to the city from an abutter, and also a call was made to Mass DEP that was then followed up with our department at the city that the abutter had observed in May 16th ongoing vegetation clearing, tree cutting behind 42 and 36 Clermont Ave. So I went out there to confirm with the owners at 42 Clermont that they had been cutting what they believed to be dead trees. So I followed up by reviewing the previous order of conditions for those two houses. So there was an order of conditions that included a 25-foot buffer zone restoration area that was marked by permanent wooden markers. And so based on my site visit, I had concluded that many of the markers were missing, and the 25-foot buffer zone was largely absent of woody vegetation and ground cover, which seemed inconsistent with what was shown on the restoration plan in the order of conditions. So based on the partial certificate of compliance that was issued, that only covered the construction of the houses themselves. There was never a final or a complete certificate of compliance issued to confirm that the restoration areas in the 25-foot buffer zone had been completed. So I don't know for sure if they were ever done and subsequently died and were removed, or they were never completed. There's no record to confirm that. I can just confirm that as of my visit in May, the area, the 25-foot buffer zone, the first 15 feet or so is mostly absent of vegetation at this time, and most of the 25-foot limit of work markers are missing at this time.
Okay. All right, and really, we're just here to ratify the enforcement order at this point.
Yes.
And has any effort gone or activity gone into coming into compliance?
I have spoken to Valerie Miller, who was hired by the owners at 42 Clermont Ave, that she was looking into the enforcement order. So I provided her the background on the site. I provided her copies of the order of conditions, of the partial certificate of compliance, of some of the site photos I had. And at that time, she was going to follow up with her clients. And that is the extent of my communication with her at that time. And most recently, my continued conversations have been with the owners at 42 Clermont Ave. They are looking also to install a fence and expand their driveway. So at the time, I advised them to address the enforcement order and that they would need a permit for the pavement improvements or expansions within the buffer zone.
Okay, and is it Mr. Darnell? Is that
Yeah, that's my
the
first.
owner?
Yep.
Okay.
The owner of 36 as well.
Okay. So could you respond to
Yes.
Megan's observations about coming into compliance?
Yes. There was a few trees that was that I cut that was in danger of hitting my house, and they were dead, and I cut those down, and the vegetation that you're talking about was never followed up by the person who built the house, and it was always dirt there, and we cleaned it up. It was toilets back there. It was all types of, it was like a dumping ground. So I just cleaned all the stuff up, and by my rake, it must have looked like everything was I dug up the vegetation, but I didn't. So I don't know if the owner of the person who built the house never followed up on what he was supposed to do, but that's all I did. Cut a few trees down that was in danger of hitting my house.
Okay, so Megan, you said that a partial certificate of compliance was issued for the construction of the house?
Yes,
Houses?
so for the houses, that's what the partial was for. The developer and owner at the time did submit a request for the complete certificate of compliance, but it was continued several times and then eventually withdrawn without being heard. So there are no minutes or any subsequent certificate of compliance that was reviewed for that complete one that was withdrawn.
Okay, Mr. Darnell, when you purchased the house, did the seller indicate to you that there were wetlands and that you were restricted as to activities that you could conduct on your property as a result?
At all.
I believe there are permanent markers on those properties.
Yeah, I was just going to ask about that. So there were supposed to be permanent markers installed. Megan, were they installed at the time of the partial?
We do, so the request for the final certificate of compliance that was not reviewed, there was an as-built submitted with it, and that did show the locations of permanent markers with 4-inch by 4-inch wooden posts. And when I went out there, I did see 2 of them on the side yard of 36 Clermont Ave, so I can confirm that there were wooden post markers installed out there. But again, I didn't see as many as there were on the as-built plan. And so the only other one I saw, I did see one that appeared to have been pulled up or removed, and it was laying on its side in the 25-foot. So that leads me to believe that there were those markers. I can't confirm exactly how many were installed, but according to the as-built plan, there were more than what I saw when I went out there.
And that, I think, was Holmgren's plan.
Yes, I believe it was a Holmgren.
Yeah.
And did the posts have medallions on them, stamped with some kind of indication as to why the posts were there? I think we've required those in the past, the medallions on the posts.
No, so the ones I saw did not have medallions. They were just wooden posts that I saw. The ones that are intact, that were standing up, I did not see medallions on them.
Okay, so unfortunately, Mr. Darnell, you said you own both properties, 36 and 42?
My neighbor owns 36. I own 42. She's right here with me.
Okay, all right. And did we get her name for the record?
Wanda Burnett.
Wanda
Okay,
Burnett.
Wanda, thank you.
You're welcome.
Unfortunately, the fact that the seller didn't make you aware there were wetlands on your property, and that again would affect some things that you could do, which means clearing in the buffer zone and cutting, even cutting trees, that normally what you would do is you would call the conservation office, talk to Megan, explain what you wanted to do. She would go out and take a look. If there was an imminent hazard, she could make a determination that you could cut and possibly file something with the commission afterwards or provide notice afterwards. If there wasn't an imminent hazard, you would need to come before the Conservation Commission to have those trees removed or to remove them yourself. Any disturbance of brush within the buffer zone or alteration, cleaning up really is regulated by the Wetlands Protection Act and needs to come before the Conservation Commission. So those areas need to be restored, and your property is still encumbered by the order of conditions, even though a partial certificate of compliance has been issued. A full certificate of compliance is not. So it is important for you aside from the fact that now we've had to issue an enforcement order, it is important that you come into compliance and then seek a full certificate of compliance so that you can remove that encumbrance from the title of your property.
Okay,
And
so what do I have to do?
well, Megan has provided instructions on what you need to do to restore the area and come into compliance.
So
Yes,
even
so my enforcement order, it included, the recommendation that they do hire the wetland professional or environmental scientist to review the original restoration plan and compare it to the current conditions to see how it could be brought into compliance. Because again, it does seem like the original restoration plantings were perhaps not done, and the required Japanese knotweed mitigation was either not done or was not done in according to the prescribed plan, because right now it does look like the knotweed has spread beyond what was part of the mitigation. So again, I can't confirm what has been done since the order of conditions was issued, but it does appear that the knotweed mitigation and the native species plantings have not been completed in accordance with that plan. So I had recommended that a professional wetland scientist or environmental scientist take a look at that plan and see what can be done under the current conditions.
And that applies to both properties?
Yes, the 25-foot buffer zone runs along the back and then of both properties and also the side of 36.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I think I heard Wanda?
Yes. So what does the buffer zone look like? Because when I moved here in February, it was all dirt. It was wintertime. And I sent Megan an email to cut 2 trees down. She gave me, I'm sorry, Pam.
No, that was me.
Sorry, Pam Gurley. I had sent her an email about the 2 trees on the side of the house. You gave me permission to cut the trees down.
To cut the trees, right.
And that's what I did. I cut the 2 trees and I left the stump. You're more than welcome to come out here and look at it. But this buffer zone, there was nothing here but dirt when I moved here in February.
That's February of this year?
February 8th, 2016.
Okay, the fact that it was dirt doesn't mean it wasn't. I can understand. So again, when you purchased your homes, it sounds like you probably weren't given a plan showing the plot and the buffer zones. We have those in the office, and you can get a copy of those, and that will show you where the wetland line is and where the 25-foot buffer zone is and where the markers, because the markers need to be installed as well.
Yeah,
Where were the
so can we
markers,
get
though?
somebody out here to
Because
put
my
these
back,
markers up and
Well, that is your responsibility at this point.
we've been trying to get somebody to come out here.
no one will come.
Like they said, Pam just said the other day that they have a field that just got back on. So can we get somebody out to put these markers up?
When you say, can you get somebody, do you mean someone from the city?
No, the conservation to put the.
No, the Conservation Commission doesn't install them, the property owner does. And the
We're
builder,
not-
so the builder was supposed to install these and didn't.
We don't know
Didn't
where.
install the markers.
Yeah, we need to know where they go because
And what
we
do
didn't
they
see
look like?
markers there. We only saw ribbons way in the back. There was pink ribbons way in the back, and the property owner told us that's where our property line ended, where those ribbons were.
And the ribbons are still there if you come in the wintertime when there's no
Yeah, the
leaves.
ribbons are still there.
So I mean, if there are a lot of ribbons, they probably are the markers for the wetland area, and it would be 25 feet up gradient of that. And
Yes.
an accurate marking, you'd need a surveyor.
Because I showed Megan, when Megan came, I showed her there was 4 big boulders, and I told her that's where the builder told us that's where our property line ended. So we never went beyond that. And all we did was clean up some debris and stuff. But our side doesn't grow bamboo. 36 Clermont grows bamboo. So we're not sure as to we just wanted to put a fence. We were trying to kind of block that off so we don't get in trouble for touching anything. We don't want to touch not supposed to touch. But we did want to block it off. That way it's out of sight, out of mind. But it seems like it's kind of difficult to do that. So we're trying to figure out how we go about doing this.
Well, I think the first step is to get a copy of the plan from, you have a copy?
We have, we have a copy of the plan.
It came in the mail.
Yep.
I believe.
Yes, I submitted with the enforcement order, I submitted a copy of the plot plans that included the restoration areas, and I included the restoration narrative that was included with the order of conditions for their reference.
Good.
So before we do the restoration area, can somebody come back and see that whatever was gone is grew back, whatever?
I think they're referring to the knotweed.
Yeah.
So the knotweed has come up, within the last couple weeks.
Right, yeah.
That isn't there, the rest of the year, but we do have photos more recently that show that the knotweed is coming up. And so that is probably the dominant vegetation, at least on 36 in the buffer zone.
Yes, we don't have anything that grows on our side. Our side is kind of like dirt. So we just need to know what we need to put there. Like, I mean, are we just throwing seeds down and let it grow, or like what are we to do?
And it falls on us because the builder didn't put it down?
Unfortunately.
So my question is, so I have all this bamboo. I sent Pam Gurley some pictures. So in the wintertime, this all dies. So I'm supposed to leave that there and just let it keep piling up? Or is somebody gonna come clean that up?
Yes, so she's referring to the Japanese knotweed.
Right.
So there was in the restoration narrative a mitigation plan for the knotweed. Again, I can't confirm what mitigation has been done for it. It's possible it would have kept spreading anyway, but it is clearly still there now, and it comes up in the summer.
By the way, it's also spreading up to my asphalt. So when it comes to my asphalt, am I gonna have to put in a building permit to do my asphalt for my back door again? Because mine is not 25 feet from the buffer zone. Wherever the markers or whatever. My bamboo is coming up to my back door.
So you probably want to, and Megan suggested again, that you get in touch with either an environmental scientist or a wetland scientist, and you probably want to talk to one that has experience and knowledge about invasive management, because that's what the knotweed is an invasive plant. It's not native to America. It's not native to this area, and it is very aggressive and it takes over an area. And you probably want to hire someone who knows the proper methods for trying to contain it and kind of fight it back.
So if I get somebody out, here, and then they tell me how to back, and then somebody else calls and say that I removed it, then I have to do it.
Well, that's why you need to let Megan know what you're doing, and she will say yes, that's appropriate or not. And you can have the person that you've contracted with get in touch with Megan. That's one of the reasons you hire someone, is so because they know the wetland regulations. They know what type of plant material is appropriate for the planting area. Megan, I'm assuming that the plans showed the plant material that was supposed to be installed.
I have bamboo. That's all I have in my backyard at 36.
Yeah.
Yes, there's a restoration plan showing plantings, and then again, there's also a restoration narrative describing the knotweed removal and the plantings.
Right, and that would be where your consultant would start, would be with those.
So I have a question. I'm Darnell's wife. So anything we want to do in our yard, such as far as like a patio, like we wanted to kind of put like a small patio off the house. We did want to put a fence back there. Anything we want to do, we have to go with conservation.
If it's within the 25-foot buffer zone.
Okay.
Well, it's actually 100-foot buffer zone is where
25-foot no touch.
Right, it's a 25-foot no touch, but it's a 100-foot buffer zone that gives the Conservation Commission jurisdiction.
So basically,
And
over the whole property then.
probably.
Yeah, they do, because but according to the plans, it shows that it's beyond the house.
So, okay, so how would I go about putting an addition to my driveway, asphalt?
You would need to you'd need to file with the Conservation Commission.
So how would I do it? How would I do that? Show you a plan of what I want to do and get approved?
You'd need to submit an application for a notice of intent, and you would need to provide a plan that shows what you're intending to do, and you'd need to come to a meeting, just like I think you've sat through this entire meeting.
Yes.
You would have a hearing just like the other applicants did.
Is it going to take years? Because it seems like those applicants are fighting for years about
They have
flooding and-
not been fighting. That particular project has been before the commission, I think, maybe a year, and that's unusual, but that's because there was a turnover in the commission, and they had some quorum issues before the new commissioners were appointed. So, what they've been trying, what those other people were saying was that people have been trying to develop that area for years.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I have a question also, because this is conservation and we can't pretty much touch everything. We can't touch anything back here. So far as the property taxes, because they're saying that I have 2.4 acres, but I can't even pretty much walk out my back door.
Then you would go to the assessor's office and take that up with them. What you'd be looking for is an abatement based on the value of the property, but that would be something the assessors would.
Yeah, I'm waiting for Mr. O'Donnell, the city to open up. I had contacted him as well. He said soon as this opens up. But that was just, so I wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like anything we want to do, we need to contact Megan first. And I mean, I guess we have to restore this first and figure out that.
Yeah.
And with anything we want to do.
Yeah, and by all means, I mean, Megan's available. She.
Oh yeah.
Give her a call.
It's right back.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, our job is not to punish people. Our job is to try to, bring people into compliance and help you understand what the regulations are and why they exist.
No, and that's fine. But if it was never followed up on and finished and finalized, why does it take someone to call for it to be, oh, well,
we
wow,
never knew this was wetland until the neighbor called.
Well, I've been doing this for many, many years now. And when you closed on your house, someone should have said, oh, your title is encumbered. The title is encumbered because there was an order of conditions. There's a partial certificate of compliance that's been issued, but there's still work that remains to be done.
Yeah, no one said
that. Was never told to us.
I'm kind of surprised there wasn't a holdback.
Oh,
right.
Obviously, work wasn't completed there.
Right.
And usually some lawyers says we need to hold back money.
Yeah.
To make sure this is done.
This was a pretty.
They told me that this was all my land, but I could not build on it. That's what they told me.
They did tell you that. They should have explained it a little bit more for you, and that you did not.
Okay, go ahead.
That you didn't have a full certificate of compliance, and there was work that was outstanding that needed to be done.
Oh.
So after we do all this, from reading from the letter I got from Megan, we have to close this out after that, right?
You will want to do that, absolutely. Yes.
Because the builder never did that.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So if you know people who are buying homes, I mean, this is my daughter-in-law does this work. I've been doing this work, and we always tell people, understand what you're buying, and understand. People don't know. People don't know that there are wetlands. I used to get brokers, very few brokers who would call me and ask and want to know, but the majority of real estate agents never call, never check it out. So, again,
so
when your kids go to buy homes, whenever, neighbors, anybody, just say, check it out.
But the funny part about it, when I purchased my house, 42 was not there. It was just a pile of dirt.
Yep.
So I didn't know what was going on.
Yep.
So what do we have to do? Just get the wetland sign to have put down. We need to put down. I need to measure out the buffer zone and put the vegetation back in that buffer zone.
But where's your buffer zone, Marcus? No, that's
That
not-
area
okay.
right there.
Yes, so that's why the letter recommends, working with a wetland scientist. You can also work with a surveyor to, remark where those markers were, to remark the wetlands line. And they can take a look at the restoration plan that I sent you and sort of interpret that to see at this point now what they would recommend you plant there.
Okay.
Okay.
So after we do all this, is somebody gonna come back out, or how do we do like the buffer zone, the markers? Because 36, that she has no yard space at all.
Yeah, so you'll want to work with that professional, so that wetland scientist. They can help you with, the knotweed mitigation, getting rid of that bamboo stuff. They can help you with actually doing the plantings and putting the markers in. And once that's done, that's how you get the complete certificate of compliance to close that all out for your house.
Okay, so it's 25 feet for 36. Would I measure it from my asphalt on the back door from there, 25 feet out?
It's measured from the wetlands line, so those flags that you see towards the back, whatever flags are still there, they're probably the wetlands flags. So that's again why you need a wetland scientist to go out and make sure that they're the ones measuring the distance. They're going to measure the 25 feet from where those flags are supposed to be, and then they measure the 25 feet out to where the markers go. And between the markers and the flags.
Yeah, so they measure
25
from
foot.
the flags towards the house.
Yes.
So we would have to wait till the winter because you can't see the flags. You can't see the ribbons now. Each of us
Oh,
have
your wetland scientists can find them.
They'll go out there. They'll
Yeah.
go through the knotweed.
There
They'll
you-
go.
Yep, they know how to do that. They may not be.
So let me be clear. So after we have the wetland scientists come out and do the markers, we can put a fence up and once she tells us and all that, or we have to contact Megan and have her come out and do all that. Or can the wetland scientists do all this once we pay her to do for her services?
I mean, if you pay, the wetland scientist to do the services, they could prepare these applications for you. They can guide you in doing the restoration, putting the markers back in. They can help you prepare that application to get your full certificate of compliance. And then if you would like, they can work with you to help prepare the application if you want to do that additional work. If you want to put the fence up, if you want to do the driveway expansion, as long as you hire someone that's knowledgeable with Wetlands Protection Act applications, you can hire them to do as much of the work as you want to get done.
Okay. Fair enough. Thank you. Fair enough. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Have a good night, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You too. Thank you very much for coming in.
Well, that sounds feasible. That's
All right, so we need to ratify these two enforcement orders. Did we do that already? Well, we can
Does
do
it
it again.
require a quorum vote?
Oh, shoot, that was where we got stuck. That's right. Yeah, it does. We can do it at the next meeting.
Yeah, I mean, they've already been issued. It's just
Right.
the housekeeping of formally voting.
All right.
And the same
for
with
204.
Yes, so 204, I can just give you an update. So that one was issued because the church had started excavating some of their lawn area in the floodplain. I spoke with the workers out there and they said that they were going to put it in a gravel parking lot. So we issued the enforcement order to kind of stop that before they put in any impervious surface. And so I went out there recently last week. It does appear that they've left that area alone. So looks like it's just reseeding itself as lawn. They have put gravel in the upland. So outside of the floodplain, outside of the 100-foot buffer zone, They did go ahead and put the gravel down, but that area, wasn't really part of the enforcement order. The area within the floodplain looks to be revegetating. It doesn't look like they've done any additional work since they received the enforcement order.
Okay.
Oh, that wasn't us, right? This is
No,
Darnell.
no, no. This is.
Oh, you're all done.
We're all done.
All right, thank you.
Oh, sorry. We're all done with you folks. Yeah.
Well, that explains why he put his hand up again.
Probably, yeah. Okay. All right. No other business before the commission?
Megan, do you know why there's from MACC?
MACC,
I
where's
didn't.
that?
I don't know ahead of time of anyone of MACC that came in, but
Can you
I mean,
see
it
that?
was. Mm-hmm.
What? I can't see anything. Someone from MACC?
As an attendee, yes.
Huh. I wonder if they're auditing meetings.
I don't know.
MACC, make yourself known. Dorothy McGlynn. Unmute yourself.
I unmuted her.
Hi, folks.
Hi, Dorothy.
How are you?
Pretty well.
I'm taking tours of all of as many Concoms as I can while everyone's doing remote meetings.
Could you introduce yourself, please?
My name is Dorothy McGlincy. I'm the Executive Director of Mass Association of Conservation Commissions. I live in Andover, but I'm taking a tour. Last night I was in New Bedford. Tonight I am in Brockton. Tomorrow night I am somewhere else in another conservation commission.
Well, welcome. Welcome. How did we do?
You always have thorny problems. Every single commission has its own unique situations with urban areas bumping right up into whether it's a river, a stream, or other wetland areas. So it's thorny, it's difficult, and I think you did a great job. It's always an educational process with trying to help everyone understand it. And my hat's off to all of you for doing so much good work for protecting the environment.
Well, thank you. Thank you for.
But I wasn't planning on talking. I was only planning on listening and then sending you a quick email thanking you afterwards.
Well, thank you. No, that's wonderful. Glad you could join us. All right, I think that's it for this evening. Motion to adjourn. Does it matter? We don't have a quorum. We have motion to adjourn, Joanne.
Second that.
All in favor?
Yes.
Stephanie, aye.
Joanne, aye.
Good night, Pam and Megan. You did a wonderful job.
Good night.
I'm sorry I was late and sorry for having.
Now we have 2 under our belt.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When did you do a planning board meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
How'd that go? Anybody
Went
can
well.
jump off now that doesn't need to. Yeah, that's
All
good.
right. Good night, ladies.
Good night.
Night.
Yeah, I mean, it just took us so long to get to this point. Everybody is doing meetings.
Well, it's been such even getting the license, and even now Rob's the only one in the city that I guess has this license. So he's setting up all the meetings.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
We can probably stop recording.
Don't say anything.